Normally I stay away from doing Twitter videos because I don't really care about Twitter drama. But when I see things like this shit from Dan Slott, I just gotta say something. So this started over the weekend with Dan Slott. You know what? Fuck it. Why be nice? Kool-Aid Man wrote this on Twitter. Quote, got a lot of concerned accounts explaining to me how putting out one comic a year, charging $25, $50 per issue, getting tens of thousands of backers to buy multiple copies, while using a model that circumvents the retailers is somehow the best thing for the comic book industry. Lies. Just so many lies everywhere. Where to begin? Well, let's start with the scare quotes. You think people aren't really concerned. They spent the better part of 2 years complaining about how the comic book industry has managed to flatline while comic book characters dominate the box office. When people look at the numbers, regular American comics get leveled by kiddie adventure books and by manga. You literally can't compete with them. People are watching their favorite characters rise to new heights in film and TV but bottom out in comics, and it makes no sense. Damn near every film or TV adaptation of a novel sells more of those books, but adapted from a comic, and you can't give the comic away. And I'm sure Dan, yes, I know I look like Harvey Weinstein, and I beg like him too, Slott would know all about that. Now, I love how Kool-Aid Man harps on this thing about putting out one comic a year because that's been the trend with indie publishing for as long as I've been into comics. I'd go to a convention one year and there'd be issue 1, and then the next year there'd be issue 2. This happened even when the books ended up in stores. It's common because most of the people making those books haven't done it before and have regular jobs. They can't spend 8 hours a day working on the book. They might get a couple of hours in at best. Yeah, guys like Timothy Lin managed to put out 8 books in a year with a full-time job, but he's Asian. He's working on like 3 books now. He's literally sprouted 2 extra arms all on one side so he can draw multiple pages. Regular people can't do that. So yeah, it's going to take some time. There's also this thing that people like Dan Slott like to do. It's called targeted harassment. These comic book professionals went after Richard Comics Need Love Like Everyone Does Meyer to the point that Mark Waid, allegedly, interfered with Meyer's contract with Antarctic Press to keep the book out of stores. So when you have to deal with shit like that, it delays the books. You want to talk about cover prices? Marvel publishes 22-page books for $4, sometimes $5, sometimes just 20 pages for the same price, and most of the books are meh at best. I don't know of any crowdfunded book that's only 22 pages that someone charged $25 for. I guess you're talking about Jawbreakers. Well, we can just go to the page and see what Richard Coinstar Meyer charged for his book. Oh, look at that. It's a 112-page book for $25. So it's not exactly a single issue, is it, dishonest Slott? Lies are just tumbling out your mouth like breadcrumbs. The $50 one includes a high-quality poster, and before you say, $45 for a poster, that's exactly what you would see at some conventions depending on the poster size, so there's nothing wrong here. My favorite part though is when Hey Kool-Aid talks about tens of thousands of people buying multiple comics of a book. Dude, in 2018 for your first issue of Iron Man, Marvel released 20 variant covers. And that's not counting the variants that were sent to specific retailers. I think if you add those in, it comes out to like 28 or 30. 30 covers for the same book, so collectors will catch them all like Pokemon. That retailers aren't going to be able to sell because no regular person is buying that many variants of the same book. But that's fine. It's fine to make retailers have to order a certain number of the regular covers to get the special variants, which Marvel does all the time. Totally cool. But God forbid that someone who's a fan of Richard Come To Me by Not Celibate Army Meyer buys more than one of his books. That's a scam. Then Jigglypuff says that this crowdfunding model, quote, circumvents the retailers. Yeah, because people like your fellow fat ass Mark Waid called the publisher to get the book canceled. Allegedly. You know, like Dan Slott allegedly uses pudding pops as lip gloss. See, you thought he was brown nosing, but in this case, it actually is chocolate. Digested by his bosses and taken from the tap so he can keep his job despite being an unprofessional twat online. You're complaining about the books being crowdfunded when you and your fellow Twitterati conspire in super secret Legion of Doom Facebook groups to boycott an entire publisher's line if they publish Jawbreakers. Y'all try to blacklist people you don't like to legit keep their books out of stores, and then you have the temerity, the unmitigated gall to throw it back in people's faces. That's a douche move, and considering you're a literal walking douchebag, it's a little redundant. You've created a situation that makes it damn near impossible for people who don't toe the politically progressive line to get published in the industry. But you're also trashing the method that allows creators to get 100% of the profits. They have total control over their work, and they don't have to go through retailers, many of whom wouldn't carry the books anyway because most comic book fans won't buy indie books. Is crowdfunding the best thing for the comic book industry? No. Is it a good thing for the industry? Hell yeah. It proves there's interest in these types of stories. People who want them can go right to the source. The downside is they have to wait longer for the books. The plus side is they're getting something they genuinely want, something they're genuinely interested in, not something they have to be talked into buying or that they're buying out of habit. You can trash it all you want, but that's genuine interest, something I don't think you've seen in a decade. Don't be mad because someone else has actual fans. But what this really comes down to is this nonsense. Quote, I disagree. One was minding their own business when they were targeted by a harassment campaign. The other co-opted that campaign to profit from it. It's disingenuous to both sides this. That's a fact. It's not up for debate. I disagree. Richard Check and Mate Meyer pointed out that Magdalene Visaggio, despite having little talent or any well-selling books, keeps getting work. No one sent people after Mags. No one targeted Mags for harassment. All anyone did was point out all the crazy things Mags tweets online that would get anyone who wasn't transgender fired, as well as the fact that Mags has written the same story in every book since Mags declared, "It's ma'am." Ethan Van Sciver took advantage of people's interest in him. As far as I know, he hasn't had any real interactions with Mags outside of a couple of Twitter spats, so I don't know what you're talking about. If what you mean is Comicsgate, well, that's a whole different story. But you don't get to decide what's up for debate. You're not an authority. You have no power. I keep telling you comic book pros this because it's not getting into your brain jelly. No one knows who you are. You think you're famous. You're not even internet famous. You want to know how unfamous comic book pros are? Back when the first Deadpool movie came out, Gail Simone hopped online and said some guy started explaining who Deadpool was to her because he thought she didn't know. He was a comic book fan. He'd probably read her run on Deadpool. If she said her name, he'd probably recognize it. But he was looking right at her and didn't know who she was. That's you. So dial the ego down. All the way down. Because that ego is part of the problem. Too many comic book pros let their egos get the best of them, and you all end up acting like jerks to people who want to buy your books. You say things like, well, if you know so much, make your own book. But when they do it, you try to sabotage it. You also do stupid shit like this. Oh fuck, he blocked me. I've gone 37 years of my life having zero contact with this man. However will I survive? I don't know. I feel so miserable without him. It's almost like he's here. I don't give a fuck if you block me. What's that supposed to do? Honestly. Like, oh, I can't read the tweets I already wasn't reading. The world continues to turn whether or not someone looks at your Twitter feed, jackass. You're not hurting me. I don't buy your books. I don't own a single thing you've ever written. But you are hurting yourself, your colleagues, and your fans because in your infinite fucking wisdom, you blocked your own fans. Just look up Dan Slott's name on Twitter and you'll see a bunch of these. Look at this. Here's a guy who bought most of Kool-Aid Man's Spider-Man run. He's a legit fan who's never interacted with Fat Ass on Twitter, but now he's blocked. Guess whose books he's not going to be buying anymore? And if you think that doesn't have an impact, oh, it does. Marvel already paid you, fat ass, but that was an investment on expected return, the purchase of the books you wrote. If nobody buys your books, it's not in Marvel's interest to hire you. You running off people who buy your books, it doesn't just affect you. It affects everyone who works at Marvel because that person could just as easily not buy any Marvel books. The only thing you've done, Dan Slott, is show your pitiful character. There's this saying that you can tell a lot about a person's character by how they treat those who can do nothing for them. Dan Slott is like that guy who got mad that the owner of Chick-fil-A didn't support gay marriage, so he went to the drive-thru, ordered food, and then cussed out the girl at the window and filmed himself doing it and put it online and found out that he was the asshole. That's Dan Slott. And the funny part is, none of his bullshit matters because he really can't stop anybody. Oh, you don't like Doug Ernst talking about you, so you get him banned from a forum. Fine. Now he creates his own blog. He can say whatever he wants, and there's nothing you can do about it. You block people on Twitter? They can still talk about you. Hell, we can still see your tweets. You've done nothing but show exactly why something like Comicsgate happened in the first place. So you can go ahead and be a little keyboard warrior blocking people on Twitter like it's really doing something. That's fine. You know why? Because you'll be forgotten in 10 years just like most of the people who wrote Spider-Man stories. There's not a single thing you've written that anyone actually cares about. The most piddling story Stan Lee wrote about Peter will live on, while the only thing people will remember about your run are the weird spider suits. You want to be mean? Well, let me show you what mean looks like. You will live, you will die, and no one will give a fuck who you were, just like the rest of us. Dial your ego down, Dan Slott. You probably already got serious cardiac problems. I don't think all that blood rushing to your head will help. Oh, and if you think that was too far, trust me, I haven't even lit the match. I don't like bullies, especially cowardly bullies like you. But what I want to say to you is better said to your face. So I'll just say this. You're a bitter, misguided, envious man, and you don't have my pity. I don't feel sorry for you, and I don't care what happened to make you do the things you do. You try to destroy people because they don't like your books, and you do it behind a veil of technology and a Marvel logo. You're a coward, and you know it, and that's why you act the way you act. So my suggestion to people dealing with assholes like Dan Slott is to hold them to their own standards. Don't sink to their level. Don't compromise your own morals, but hold them to their own standards. And when they claim they're going to act right, don't believe them. You got to prove to me that you're not the scumbag you made yourself out to be. Fair is fair. They want nothing to do with you, have nothing to do with them. And when they change their minds, too bad. You're done. Until you prove you're not still an asshole, I really don't care what you have to say. That's how you deal with these far left nut jobs. You treat them how they treat everyone else. And when they complain, keep doing it. So, until I see you in person, Dan Slott, go sit on a broken bottle and twist.